Respected Shailesh Bhai, Faculty of the Day, Bhaskar, President IIA, Vikesh, DG, Institute of Directors, Manish Sampath, Vice President of the Society, distinguished guests, Manoj, President, Western Region IIA Bombay Chapter, seniors and friends. It's my pleasure to welcome each one of you to this extraordinarily interesting event on the interplay between artificial intelligence and internal audit, AI and IA. The words look the acronym looks interchanged, but it's a very interesting interplay between the two. This is a event which is jointly held between the BCAS and the Institute of Internal Auditors, and I can see quite a few members here who are not closely associated with the Bombay Chartered Accountants Society. As the president of the society, I would like to just take a couple of minutes introducing the society to each one of you. Friends, BCAS is the largest non-government body of accounting professionals in India. Established in 1949, it serves around more than 9,000 members across the country. The activities of the society are diverse and can be broadly classified into events, publications, representations, and networking. Last year, the society provided more than 130,000 hours of education through a diverse set of events like lecture meetings like the one which we have today, workshops, courses, etc. Substantial components of these events are available online either on YouTube or on its paid e-learning platform. Today's event is also being live streamed across the internet and is available to online viewers across the world. The monthly mouthpiece of the society, titled the Bombay Chartered Accountant Journal, just completed 50 years of relevance and is a must read for any chartered accountant. The society regularly interacts with the government to represent difficulties in the legislations and suggest improvements in them. It also aims at facilitating and building of credible and deep networks both within the profession and across similar professions. As a part of its networking initiative and the MOU that the society has with the Institute of Internal Auditors, today's joint event is conducted. And I am very happy to see that it has received a really wonderful response from the participants across the three societies. Friends, all of us are aware the Institute of Internal Auditors is the internal audit profession's most widely recognized advocate, educator, and provider of standards, guidance, and certifications. Established way back in 1941, today it serves members from more than 170 countries and territories. Its Indian arm is headed by S. Bhaskar and the Mumbai chapter is headed by Manoj Agrawal. We are happy to welcome both of you to the Bombay Chartered Accountants Society. Friends, in order to understand the stakeholders' perspective to this issue, we also have amongst us Mr. Vikesh Walia. He is the Director General at the Institute of Directors. We are happy to welcome you to this event, sir. Friends, at the society, internal audit has been a distinct focus area for the current year. We have created a special GRC subgroup within the Accounting and the Auditing Committee, and it has held multiple programs throughout the year, which is going to end in the month of June. And of course, next year we are going to have a separate committee for the internal audit. The GRC subgroup is coming up with a very interesting internal audit conclave on the June 20th and the 21st at Orchid. The idea of this conclave is to take internal audit to new heights. It is intended to introspect and address some difficult questions, develop strategies for auditing new areas, have a hard look at talent gaps and fill them, redefine the determination of the scope, and much more. Very succinctly, if we have to describe it in the words of Nandita Parekh, the conceptualizer of this event, it's like taking the bull by the horn or addressing the elephants in the room. The detailed outline of the course is available. It has been circulated to each one of you. Please take advantage of the event before the course gets full, because in the past we have had to actually regret quite a few participants. So the earlier the better would be the saying which we would look at. Coming to the event for the day, the concluding remarks of the IIA's AI Auditing Framework, the publication which was published last year, are very apt. And I would just like to quote from that. The internal auditing profession cannot be left behind in what may be the next digital frontier, artificial intelligence. To prepare, Internal auditors must understand AI basics, the roles that internal audit can and should play, and AI risks and opportunities. To meet these challenges, internal auditors should leverage the framework to deliver systematic, disciplined methods to evaluate and improve the effectiveness of risk management, control, and governance processes related to AI. Friends, to understand all these paradigms, we could not have a better person amongst us than CA Shailesh Haribhakti. Shailesh Bhai is a very close friend of BCAS. Sir, it's our privilege to have you to share your thoughts on this very important topic amongst us. Friends, Shailesh Bhai has been so close to BCAS that he has written a book on internal audit and artificial intelligence, the topic, and he has carried his books over here, which will be distributed to each one of us. We are very grateful to Shailesh Bhai for this kind gesture of his. I would now request Bhaskar, President IIA, to share his perspective to all of us. Bhaskar.
Thank you, Sunil Bhai, and the Bombay Chartered Accountant Society. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for your presence here, and it's so wonderful to meet all of you in person. Well, it's indeed a great privilege and delight for me to welcome all to the lecture meeting on AI, ML, and the future of and for internal auditing. On behalf of IA India, I would like to thank our distinguished guest speaker, Shri Shailesh Haribhakti, for accepting our invitation and taking out valuable time to share his perspectives, thoughts, and guidance with the internal auditing fraternity. I would like to also thank Mr. Walia from the Institute of Directors for accepting our invitation and share few thoughts. I would like to thank all those who have taken out time to participate today on this special occasion, either in person or those who are participating virtually with this. Every May, internal auditors across the globe, they come together and celebrate the International Internal Audit Awareness Month. For internal auditors India too, May is always a great time for reflections and resolutions. Reflections on ourselves as internal auditors, on our profession, the business environment, the stakeholders' expectations, digital disruption, etc., etc. May 2009 also seems to be a great month for starting afresh, a new innings for several, including internal auditors, to develop new perspectives and to untangle the myths, misperceptions about the facts and realities of the internal auditing world. As many of us may be aware, the theme for IA for this year globally was emphasize the basics and elevate the standards. To set the context for today's session, let us revisit the basics for internal auditing. The internal audit activity should monitor and evaluate the effectiveness of organization's risk management system, IA standards 2110A1. The second standard which is referring to this is the internal audit activity should assist an organization by identifying and evaluating significant exposures to risk and contributing to the improvement of risk management. Now, few years back, we had only heard about digital, but today we are inundated with the digital. RPA, analytics, IoT, AI, ML. So what does all this mean? For organizations, what are the associated risks? For internal auditing profession, how do we stay relevant? How do we maintain our competency to fulfill our mandate as trusted advisor? How do we provide relevant advisory and assurance services to our stakeholders? It is imperative and vital for all of us, internal auditors or the internal auditing profession, to keep pace and elevate our standards. Similar to IA Global, IA India had embraced the theme Together We Shall. I would like to urge all internal auditors to together become digitally fit. I would like to also request everybody to update and upgrade our competencies. Already one of my team members has challenged me that I belong to the Jurassic era. We are indeed fortunate that we have been able to obtain time from Shailesh Bhai to share his perspectives on this vital topic. Incidentally, I would like to also share that Shailesh Bhai is the first certified internal auditor from IA India. So let me play a special recognition. Before I end, I just want to briefly mention about Sri Vikas Walia from the Institute of Directors, who is the DG of Institute of Directors. He is also the a former director in the Times Group and a founder member of IOD Foundation, invited to the Executive Committee of Council of Fair Business Practices, consultant at GLG USA. Now I'd like to request Sri Walia ji to share few thoughts from the IOD perspective. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bhaskar. And very good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and especially people on the dais. I'm really privileged to be here in front of so many chartered accountants, and especially all specializing in internal audit. Institute of Directors is the largest association of directors in the country. It is also the largest training platform for directors in this country. It is also the largest platform for connecting aspiring directors with the prospective boards. It also happens to be the only organization in the country that facilitates networking and knowledge sharing at global platforms right from Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore to London, Dubai, and Singapore, as much as the London program is hosted at the House of Lords itself. The recognition through our Golden Peacock Awards is a very sought after one by all the organizations, including those outside the country. And lastly, and we would like to make that the first one, is the board evaluation and appraisal, where we have made a small beginning, but it's too small. So we happen to be the only organization in the country that offers all these 6 services at one platform. Some of our faculty is also here in this hall, and some of our patrons like Shailesh Haribhakti ji is very much here, and we always seek his advice in creating and crafting the curriculum for the training programs. Mr. Pinge is here, Bhaskar ji is here, and they have all contributed in more than one way in creating the curriculum for the training of the directors, which is so very important today. And the only reason that your finished product is not good, one of the main reasons is that your raw material is not good. So if you take care of the raw material, you bring in high quality raw material, the output is most likely to be very good. So we are making all the efforts in improving the quality of board members, and especially those who are aspiring, and especially women, where we are doing one special program for women directors, only to increase the supply. Once the quality supply increases, the output is bound to be very, very high quality. Coming to internal audit and our perspective to internal audit is always the talk of the town. You go to any organization, the most, and particularly for people like me who have been a non-chartered accountant with limited knowledge of finance, always, we have, had a lot of discussion around internal audit, and especially when a person like me, when I was at the Times Group and on the board of WWM, our BBC JV company, and I was put on the audit committee. It was a new experience to be on the other side, because all the time in the media industry, facing more than one audit. The internal audit was there, the statutory audit was there. Above that, we used to have ABC audit. Above that, we used to have RNI audit, and above that, we used to have the readership audit, whatnot and whatnot, all kind of audits. So audits have made life for many business managers a very big learning experience, a very difficult experience many times. And today, of course, internal audit is more in news than ever. All of us, we know the good reasons for that being so. And today we realize that the human intervention is not enough. Shailesh ji has introduced this book on internal audit and artificial intelligence quite some time back. It has been more than a year or so. And that happens, and you realize that human intervention is not enough for audit. You need artificial intelligence. Human intelligence is not enough. And I'm glad that this topic is coming up today. Not only the artificial intelligence, but you also need the help of machines. Earlier machines were just the laptops and the PCs, but today those machines are becoming bigger and more complex in nature, and they are going to definitely facilitate internal audit and take the journey of internal audit to a different planet altogether. I wish you all the very best for the program and having so many learned people and none other than Shailesh Bhai here himself. I think talking anything more than this on internal audit is a little too much for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Friends, good evening. It's always a pleasure to introduce a personality like Shailesh Bhai for you. We all know him as a successful chartered accountant in practice for over 4 decades when he was leading one of the India's most leading and diverse firms, Haribhakti and Company. But friends, if we have heard the saying that life begins at 60, and if you want an example, then he is the living example of that. At the at the ripe and young age of 62, he stepped down from his firm, and he wears now many hats, which includes a philanthropist, an author, an activist, an economist, and a management guru, and so on. Friends, through his not-for-profit organization, he recently has written a book called Audit Reassurance, and from there he, wishes to establish high quality of audit. Further, he's also pursuing his individual advisory practice as a sole proprietor. Then he has, over the years, derived great knowledge in corporate governance, and for that he also heads another firm, a managing consulting firm, where he provides digital enabled corporate governance support to corporates in India and globally. Mr. Shailesh Haribhakti currently is a non-executive chairman of many leading companies like L&T Finance Holding, L&T Mutual Fund, Future Lifestyle Fashions Limited, and Blue Star. And over and above that, he sits on boards of many distinguished companies like Torrent Pharmaceuticals, the Times Group, that is Bennett Coleman, NSDL E-Governance Infrastructure, Mahindra Life Sciences, Ambuja, ACC, and the list goes on. He also is on the advisory board of Doha Bank, of the Doha Bank. And then to serve the MSME sector, he also has another initiative wherein he has this consulting firm which helps in getting support for MSMEs for loan, for the self-lending and timely recovery of loan. He also is an investor with his new initiative in equity investing called the New India. He is also an environmentalist, and he promotes green environment through his another enterprise, Planet People Profit Consulting Firm. Then he has led many leading organizations, which includes BMA, IIA Bombay, ICAI, IMC, Rotary, where we were associated with in the last few years. Then, friends, personally, when I have grown up in my practice, I have always adored Shailesh Bhai as his professional achievements and his oratory skills, and I always wanted to work with him. I got a chance in 2013 where we were joint auditors of the Reserve Bank of India, and really it was a learning, enriching experience for me. Friends, we have Shailesh Bhai for you today. But before I hand over the proceedings, I would just request Sunil to hand over a small gift, a memento from us as a token of remembrance. Thank you. Shailesh Bhai, the floor is all yours.
Using the screen.
It's just page down, right? Okay, great. Thanks. Ah, lovely. Got it. What a galaxy of associations on the dais. I salute all three of you for coming together on a subject of such great importance, internal auditing. To me, I can't think of a better way to assure myself that I can continue to do all the things that Mr. Sampath mentioned when he was talking about what I do without the help of internal auditing. It's just impossible. And so this is an absolutely critical function, and I'm very happy to see that it is now receiving the attention that it deserves. But let me give you a few contexts to set the whole discussion of artificial intelligence in. And let me begin by talking to you about what my beliefs are about the world. You know, for the last several decades, we have been operating from a scarcity mentality. Today, the world is abundant, and the rate at which the world is changing is described in a very, very interesting way. It is called the Die Progress Unit. This is defined as the period in which, if you were to be transported ahead by a time machine, you would feel that everything that you're experiencing is so unique and so different that you have a near-death experience. Ray Kurzweil has given us the idea that as we speak today, the DPU is at a level of 14 years. But by the time we reach 2021, the DPU will keep compressing until you will find that the entire 20th century's progress will be redone, reaccomplished in almost 1 year. And therefore, we will have to be continually in the midst of this change. So what does this new world of abundance create in terms of rules that we must follow? The rules are very different. Every corporation that I'm engaged with, every activity that I'm engaged with, has for its basic mission getting much, much more out of much, much less. It's incredible that an organization like ACC, for example, which is such a venerable, well-known, almost it's synonymous with cement, the productivity of such an organization has risen at a pace that frightens even me. We are today doing 3 times the output from the same human resource that has been retrained, reorganized, empowered by technology. And all of this needs to be done faster. It needs to be done in a way that we do not generate waste. And we must recognize that the world has run out of capacity to manage any more waste, particularly the non-biodegradable type of waste. The world has just simply run out of capacity. And if we don't reverse course immediately, we'll have a huge amount to pay. What has all of this done in our field of auditing? To my mind, it has brought auditing together. Auditing has finally become completely holistic, to think in terms of all the different audits that Mr. Valia mentioned separately, perhaps is no longer relevant. Auditing has to be done in a way that it brings everything together. It brings forth an environment in which you can do what your mission is, whatever may be your chosen mission, with comfort, with confidence. And therefore, auditing has to become continuous. It has to improve continually. And ultimately, it has to result in process assurance. The word that we need to really keep in our minds uppermost has become assurance. When we are operating with something, when we are making a decision, whatever aspect of life we are dealing with, if you're not assured that you are making those decisions in the correct context, you'll simply not have the confidence to make that decision. And another insight which I would like to share with all of you: there is nothing more valuable than the analysis of a complaint. If you ask the 5 whys for any small complaint that comes up, what I find is that the discovery that you make of what is really driving that whole process which led to a failure, which led to a complaint, is correctable. The insights that you can get from complaint analysis are absolutely invaluable. So what are the values that all of us as professionals should imbibe? We certainly should be proud of our profession. I think it is very important that we stop taking the knocks that society, politics, everybody else is trying to give us, and stand up and want and deserve to be counted. So I'm not talking about pride in any other sense than as valuing what you're doing at a very high level. Determination. All the speakers before me have talked about the fact that as a profession, we need to be determined to continually change, continually improve, continually make the difference that we ought to make. Integrity has to be absolutely ingrained in the DNA, not just of our profession, but my thinking now is that as we move into an era of e-governance, and that's going to be the biggest force, I can assure you the extent of work that is being done, and some of it I'll share with you in this space, is going to bring about almost mandatory integrity in everything that we think, do, act, process, every which way. And of course, ambition. If we are going to live in a world where the entire 20th century's progress will be visible in 1 year, then if you do not have the ambition to overcome and stay relevant with all that change happening, there's no way that you can face the world. And therefore, the ambition to continue to reorient, reinvent, and make sure that you can be what you wish to be. Now the context. Why is artificial intelligence so talked about today? 3 reasons, very critical. The world has created enormous capacity to simply capture data sets, images, film, video, all kinds of content, and play with it in a context that you want to play with it. And what has this got to do with intelligence? What this does is that it puts all of this data up in the cloud. There's so much of space available to store and process this data. The challenge has become, how do you make sure that the data that you have already fully processed and is not likely to be useful in a second round of analytics is discarded? That is the biggest challenge that the world is trying to tackle today. And therefore, there's enormous capacity. As these patterns get created, what you need is a force that will enable you to deal with these patterns, to interpret them, and to interpret them even more intelligently than you can simply by looking at a voucher and looking at three connected papers. The context has become complex. And the context, because it is ever changing, you need the support of the machine to enable you to learn at that faster pace. And therefore, this has become so important that we capture the value of this enormous data, create the context, store it, process it, discard it, use it, and keep learning so that new patterns and new protections and new assurance can be produced. And you can now do it, which is the third force which is leading to the widespread use of AI and ML, is the speeds at which you can do this have gone up so dramatically that you can do massive processing in time frames that are virtually instant. And because of this rapid change in this whole environment, you need to make sure that you can capture those data sets as they arise. So what is the new paradigm of data flow? Where is data flowing from? In our world, data flows from bank transactions, tax payments, which we make at source, which we pay in advance, which we pay at the time of assessment, all our indirect tax payments, invoices being uploaded, downloaded, the tax credits getting captured, past benefits getting utilized and captured, credit card usage is becoming an accounting generator. It's amazing that the world will one day see a situation where the entire work of accounting need not be done within a defined entity. It will be done by the financial system and the tax gathering system, which will need to process this information for different contexts, but will make that same processed information available to you, dashboard it, make it available to you through your own dashboard to consume for your own decision making. And therefore, I use the term a credit card is an accounting generator. And so are all these payment apps that are proliferating all around us. Regulatory filings, they are trackers of compliance. Case filings, they are a tracker of behavior. The returns that we file become more or less a continuous input into the know your counterparty paradigm. It's so important that for everything that we do, we continually re-recognize who's our counterparty. And that is all now to be captured while it is happening. And therefore, I reached that conclusion that all decision will be data science driven. All decision making. You simply will lose the ability to make decisions simply based on a look at 2 or 3 variables, because the data flow is so immense and the context and the the macro situation is getting so complicated and so ever changing that you will need that sharp machine enhanced intelligence to make sure that you can make the right decisions. And all these data sets require immediate capture. The minute a data set emerges, if it is not captured, it's gone forever. You simply can't run after it. You can't chase it. If you don't capture the interrelationship between data sets, then it's too late. And so you need to have this ability and this whole paradigm of sharing, which will enable us to make sure that we are in the path of data and data sets at all times. This is, to my mind, a very new thought process. And I'd like BCA to conduct some sort of a research on how can we build this power of data flow capture. It's very different from accounting. It's not about ERP. It's not about analytics. It's just about being in the path of data sets and relationships at all times. It's a new world of accounting. Look at how we are wasting half our time. The bank creates the bank statement. We get it. We create our own set of accounting from the same source, same data, and then we sit and reconcile. Completely waste of time. Do you know that in one Latin American country, you do not have to file a tax return? Nobody in that country needs to file a tax return. Your tax is determined for you. So the whole paradigm has shifted from tax compliance and tax return filing and paying and all of that to tax determination. So Thomson Reuters determines the tax payable by this whole country, by all SSEs in this whole country, and sends out a notice to all the taxpayers that based on the data that we have captured, this is the tax that you have to pay. And everybody quietly pays it. And if you want to argue, then it's a very tough argument, because this is permission data captured from the natural flows in the economy, which enable the determination of tax. Now look at the way we are looking at it. We are catching this whole thing by the wrong direction by saying that not only should you file your taxes, you should file your return. Now you have to give all these details about what expenditure you incurred, when did you go on a holiday, where did you go to a restaurant. All of this has to be captured again and fed into a system which doesn't know what to do with it, because we don't have the tax determination idea. I had shared this at a budget interaction with Hasmukh Bhai when he had come to Mumbai. Maybe some of you were there in that meeting, but very intrigued by the idea. And our tax department is now beginning to think about tax determination. And the way to get there is to make our taxes simple. And the way to do that is to extract it from the natural data flows that are there. I was telling somebody only yesterday that if we can reach that level of sophistication, I cannot see how GST cannot be 2 lakhs a month. There's no way. And I've got a YouTube video, those of you who are interested can see it, which talks about what simplifications are necessary in order to achieve a 2 lakh crore per month GST collection, given current economic data. No change. Growth will, of course, change that as soon as we grow more, indirect tax will be paid. But this is the new paradigm. This is fundamentally a new way which has been enabled because of all this new technology infrastructure that the world has invested in. And also remember that all the top 10 market capitalization companies in the world are the highest capitalized companies because they can address the need of the whole human race, the entire human race. That's why you have these companies capitalized at the value that they have. That's the underlying feature. You capture, you scale, you do it costlessly, or you do it at extremely low unit cost. And so you are able to do things for people that was simply impossible. And today I can't reach a new location where I have to go without Google. And soon we will all begin to feel that 4G is very tiresome. 5G is almost, even today I'm feeling, is extremely important, necessary, waiting for it. When will it come? By the way, Nokia, when it sold its entire handset business to Microsoft, invested every dollar that they received in creating the 5G infrastructure to enable IoT. So the infrastructure investments are going into the ground at a ferocious pace because there's so much cash being generated. You're taking care of the needs of the entire human race. And so you have these burgeoning billions of dollars and your costs are falling. So you're making surpluses which you need to reinvest because the infrastructure needs are changing dramatically. And that's what's creating the ability for us as internal auditors to be able to perform our work in a context that will be continuous improvement. And before I go to the other context, let me just share with you that the relevance of an internal audit report is falling steeply. It doesn't make sense. I'm not interested as chairman of an audit committee to receive report of something, some event that had happened 3-4 months ago, and somebody forgot to do something and something happened, it didn't get corrected. I'm just bored looking at those kind of reports. What I want to see is whether there is a continuous assurance that the process will deliver to my dashboard information that is relevant to me right now so that I can make the right decision sharply. Everything else is irrelevant and out of time, out of scale. So let me create for you the vision of how an enterprise 5 years from today will be. They will have at least 4 portals, at least. And you can conceptualize. Again, this is a worthy research subject. Portalizing everything. So there'll be a portal for controls. You know, the whole idea of accounting standards and their applicability to a particular entity and trying to figure that out in an interaction between the CFO and the auditor has become a meaningless exercise completely. There are so many occasions on which so many corporations across the world have dealt with that issue. So if you had a portal which enables you to choose the appropriate accounting standard which applies to a particular economic event in real time, and you can choose it through clicks, of the alternatives, and there are no more than 2 or 3 alternatives for each treatment, then you simply portalize the use of the standard that you need to actually apply. Look at your IFCR documentation. It virtually gets obsolete the minute you have finished the first documentation. Nagesh, would you agree? In large companies, that happens. The minute you finish it, it's already obsolete. You already changed 20 different things. Unless this can be done in a fully automated, intelligent, portalized way, you simply can't cope. It's not, every company that is represented here, every company, including Reserve Bank of India, that we've audited together, becomes obsolete the minute the first documentation is done. You need to keep it continually alive. And that's the new paradigm. All your internal audit findings. I'm saying, how can some person making a presentation to me at the audit committee 2 days ago assure me that every audit finding that has been accepted from the beginning of history has been implemented? I want that assurance. Nagesh Pinge is hiding. But I'm saying that is the challenge that we can actually meet if you have portalized. Key audit matters. New thing that all of us are looking at every board meeting, at every... Now all of this become inputs to creating the context for assurance. And if they are not documented today, while the auditors are now finishing their 31st March audit reports, and you don't draw the extracted juice from them, and you don't make sure that processes which they are saying they're now performing as special audit of processes can be eliminated, and it can become routinized. And that can happen only if this continuous evaluation is possible. Now, I came across a software where the entire need for coding has been completely eliminated. Completely. So the idea that you need coders may become completely obsolete, because the system will develop the intelligence to be able to code to the paradigm that you create, the parameters that you want to see driving your businesses. Management letters, notices from regulators, notices from authorities, all of this will have to get onto your control portal. Tax portal. It's a nightmare. Company like ACC, where something may be sitting, being agitated with the Supreme Court, which happened 35 years ago. Nobody has any clue of what the law was at that time, who was the tax assessing officer, what were the discussions, debates. Nothing is available. And you're trying to make sense out of a situation, and you're arguing before the Supreme Court, and you don't have the backup of a tax portal. It's just impossible. Imagine what will happen when ITC credits get debated, or when old reliefs of GST start getting questioned. This anti-profiteering. It's been such a nightmare for the best of best breed companies in this country. Hindustan Lever, Procter & Gamble, all of them, ITC, all of them are fighting anti-profiteering challenges. And it is because we have not portalized our tax compliance. RPA, portalization, all of that is the same thing. It's all one big capture the data flow as the data sets arise. That's the insight. Legal portal. Just 3 days ago, Indu Shahani, who many of you would know, she was visited by the police at her home. And they said that there is a company in which you are a director who has done some default for which you have to appear in court tomorrow morning. And you have to produce to. So the company in which she was a director did not have details of that particular case. They didn't know what that case was all about because that case happened in another entity which was earlier merged with that company. So there was no track. And because of her personality and because of the fact that she went to the Delhi High Court to convince the judges that she was a innocent, diligent, independent director and was therefore spared. But do any of you keep handy with you copies of your passbook? Do you know that that's the basic document that the police and the High Court demand when you're hauled up before them? How many in this room knew this? You know, this is the environment that we are facing. And you simply can't deal with this environment without a portalized idea of all the legal actions, wherever in the country, are up and open against you, particularly against directors. And then, of course, many companies, Mahindra and Mahindra definitely has a operations portal, so people can, of that portal, actually see what's happening in the operation. But unless you portalize all of this and you have control over it, now this is all big data, this is all large storage, and you got to intelligently be able to retrieve it. That's where your AI comes in. That's where your learning comes in. And you need to deal with this in a way that you can retrieve it when it is necessary. So again, my vision of an organization 5 years from today, you will have to be continually due diligence ready. So your data rooms will have to be continually updated, whether or not a transaction which needs a due diligence is occurring or not. It doesn't matter. And this is again one of the biggest areas of practice that we can spawn through the BCA. Huge, untouched area. The creation of continually updated data rooms. How do you get anybody to do a diligence? If you don't have a data room, you can't do diligence, obviously. And if you don't have a data room which is electronically charged, you cannot capture. Like if you merge a company, you need to have the entire history of that company uploaded into your portal in order that you can deal with the nonsense that Indu had to deal with, which I talked to you about. It's a live case. So, and then proactive forensics. This is an idea whose time has come. You can't have the whole country be subjected to forensic investigation after they have made some default and they are in some IBC or some Reserve Bank or some banking situation. It's too late. All good companies will have to practice proactive forensics to support every M&A and every market-based raising of resources. The big boys will never go back to the banking system in 5 years' time. None of the Tata Group, large companies, none of the Birlas, ACC, Ambuja, L&T, all of us will raise resources from the market. Disintermediation is absolutely real. At L&T Finance, before retailizing our assets, we thought it's also important for us to retailize our liabilities. And when we asked for 5,000 crores, we asked for 5,000 crores, no, 50,000 crores, we were offered 3.5 lakh crores. Because the people of India have understood that there's no point in my putting my money into a BB plus bank and think that my deposit is safe rather than putting it into a AAA company whose deposit will give me far higher rate of interest than the BB plus bank. People of India are realizing this. क्यों करने का? Why give that NIM away? There are reasons, but I'm just being a little bit facetious, but I'm saying that's the trend. And therefore, it's important to be always ready to show that you're clean, continually clean. And great things will be discovered with proactive forensics. Massive advantage. In Blue Star, we ran this on a particular aspect, and we were completely taken by surprise that it was useful to do that exercise. Paid off. An information memorandum ready. You got to express yourself, who you are, what you believe, what's your business model, who are your people, who's doing what, where are your plants, what are their capacities, and all of this has to be continually ready and updated. That's what in 5 years' time all of us will have to be. Any organization more than 500 crore turnover will have to answer to all of this. And so there's huge opportunity. And the role of internal audit in all of this is, the footprint is everywhere. None of these processes can be done without the partnering of the internal audit function. None. So what's the India story that I'm seeing evolving? We are a great AAA profession, and I make this statement everywhere. We are a profession which has instantly taken to automated IT-enabled accounting, continuous assurance, active capture of flows. Going digital is the biggest market in the world is in India. All the big consulting firms of the world, all, no exception, are making a beeline for India to support each one of our organizations going fully digital. And we may think we've got SAP and we've got all this workflow and we've got all of this software that we've invested in. Whole lot of legacy investments. But they need to be reorganized. And I can tell you this is all pervasive. Across the length and breadth of corporate India, you need consolidation. And the need for that consolidation of legacy with current up-to-date systems is, the time scale is reducing very rapidly. And because we realize that you also need to combine biotech and nanotech to achieve the singularity again that Ray Kurzweil talks about, you now need to encompass all of this with the backdrop of ESG. I'll give you an illustration. We were raising $100 million in the IDF at L&T. And at the last minute, IFC Washington, which was a participant in the product, asked the question, are you ESG compliant? Now, if we wanted the check, we needed to be ESG compliant. Fortunately, we had taken advance action thanks to SEBI's BRR and then IR and all of this, that we could show that we are ESG compliant. Then they ask the second question. Is everybody that you intend to give this money to ESG compliant? Please mark this. In 5 years' time, not a single dollar of FDI will be permitted to come into India without ESG compliance. This is the reality. ESG is environmental stewardship, social responsibility, and governance. And if you don't have these three, you're not going to get a dollar from anywhere in the world. And therefore, I'm saying it's so important that the India story encapsulates ESG compliance. Fastest growing market for everything dealing with technology because of the lack of inventory. Largest market for handsets, largest market for digitization, largest market for IT-led disintermediation. Every Israeli company is sitting here in Mumbai to capture the phenomenal market that India. I talked about this legacy to current. There's a software which unpeels the onion of your legacy systems, captures the essence of what you wish to do, and rebuilds your current system automatically. And these Israelis came and gave demos, and it clicked to me that, my God, every company in this country needs this. How can you have an old struggling ERP which people have forgotten what are the cross linkages, and you simply can't do this. You need a full internal audit appraisal of when you need to reconsolidate, dump your legacy systems and reorient, reconfigure. That market is huge and very exciting. CAs and SMEs are the new darlings of, I get a SMS every day without fail from Bajaj Finance. You're a CA, we are ready to give you 35 lakhs of rupees. I don't want it. But you'll get an SMS every day that there's this consumer finance available. Free. And I want to share this with you, and why AI and ML is so critical. Because everything that is to be known about our credit history is known to the world. And therefore, it makes no sense for me, as say L&T Finance, to waste my time trying to make people fill out long applications for loans and then try and do a diligence and get somebody to go and do whatever. All our automated credit decisioning mechanisms have resulted in far better credit quality than any manual intervention. Now, this could not have been enabled in a different world, in a different infrastructure world. So we have to forget about farming of labor. Centers of excellence will be built. App building will be the big thing. System integration, system support, data flow tracking, credit decisioning. There's a whole new set of enterprises that are competing for this credit decisioning market. As we speak, I know of at least 5 companies who are competing for the credit decisioning piece. So all of this is the India story. Non-data entry driven data capture. The moment your system requires somebody to do data entry, you are opening the door to many problems. Cybersecurity, data inaccuracy, all sorts of rubbish. Very important to make sure that personalization happens on a permission basis. Very important that tweaking, monitoring, optimizing, reinventing all happens. I talked to you the story about Thomson Reuters being the tax determinant. It's the largest tax service company in the world. It's not none of the big four. The largest tax service provider in the world is Thomson Reuters because they determine tax. So this is a quick definition of what sustainability means. Just remember that if you miss a month from your budget, it's impossible to make up because you're running all your systems at full power. And if you don't do things today that you have committed to do today, it's like data sets, it's gone forever. Very critical. It's important, whatever metric you choose, has to be sustained risk adjusted, continuous. The idea of finding new customers cannot be permitted to get out of the minds of any person in the organization, every person in the organization. To find and implement solutions, not ideas. This whole idea of people giving thoughts is gone. Look inwards and outwards. Punishment to the teams should be very severe and be resilient. And you can read all of this, but the big thing that I would talk about is the STP and the EWS. See, unless every system of yours enables straight-through processing, which is internally audited and ready, assured process, you simply will not be in business at a scale of beyond 1,000 crores. It's impossible. And if you do not have early warning signals built into every activity that you as an internal auditor have under your charge, it'll be too late to make a difference. It'll be just too late. Then it moves into forensics. You got something wrong, and something wrong happens, and then you got to find who did it, why, whether it was intentional, what happened. Stay on course every single day and make winning a habit. Mr. Walia's subject, governance, because without the context of governance, all of this fails. As I said, without ESG, you don't get a dollar. Therefore, it's important that you recognize what this G stands for. And essentially, it means establish the morality of purpose. And if you don't do it through e-governance, then e-governance will catch you. Because big data is everywhere, it's being captured. And you will find that the notices that you get from Ministry of Corporate Affairs or from any of the other authorities will be so sharp that you will be dazzled by the insights they have about you. Establish relevance, engender contribution by all, promote value, add continually, perform diligence, all of this, manage risk, and advocate. This is a task that no organization can do without internal audit support. And that's why this is critical. Embrace fuzzy logic and make sure that all of this happens in a border of transparency, trust, and technology. So, given this context of the world and India and the data infrastructure that is being created, how do you implement AI and ML driven internal audits? What do you need to do? I think you quoted this, and I'm quoting it again. The internal audit activity should monitor and evaluate the effectiveness of the organization's risk management system. Exactly the quote that you. And the internal audit activity should assist the organization by identifying and evaluating significant exposures to risk. Now, at one point in time, we all felt that this risk-based auditing will go away at some point. But it just keeps coming back because that is the only reality that we need to conform to. And I strongly believe in it. And you can use the power of AI to find what I like to call deviant patterns. Ultimately, all your sharpest audit findings will be behavioral. Somebody is leaving your organization, you find a sudden spate of emails going out. Critical data about customers, pricing, people's salaries, etc., being shipped out to a Gmail ID. You track, and you'll see that the behavior changes. And you need to track for this. You need to make sure that you are cognizant of those risks. And therefore, you need to define the universe of what you wish to audit. And you need to, when you're defining this universe, because then you'll have to set the context. What data you want to see, how do you perform the analytics, what are the internal devices, tools, tackles that you need to make sure that all of this can happen. AI is not happening outside your context. It is happening totally in your context. And it happens through all of this. Tools, templates, all of that are part of. And if they are populated automatically as data sets flow, then you have captured the power of AI and ML. And then you use that to find the patterns and find the deviations and connect the dots. And then use your intelligence as an auditor. That's your intelligence. That can never be substituted. When you see these deviant patterns and you connect the dots, and then you draw your conclusions, that's when you get the true value of the internal audit process. So all of this needs to be constructed uniquely for each enterprise in order that you can then apply the tools that are available. The tools to apply AI and ML are available on a pay-as-you-go basis, on a SaaS model, on a per license basis, on many, many different pricing formulae. And you just simply have to acquire it. And you need to make sure that your audit committee or whoever else is making the decision on investment is propositioned correctly to make sure that this will happen. Because without that, you can't live. And then you conduct it using your planning and making sure that the internal audit goes into all of this, captures it, pulls out the patterns, and presents it by control objective, by strategic objective, by frequency of risk occurrence, and by type of event that you set yourself up to track from your universe. And you need these multiple lenses in order for internal audit to be effective. Nobody has, no internal audit department has the ability to parse through every report that they've ever written and backtrack it through the risk management system. And that's what you can really gain and acquire. Knowledge transfer is poor. As people keep changing their jobs and as people leave and new people come in, knowledge transfer is highly inadequate. While some programs are over-evaluated, some programs will leave risks exposed, and therefore it becomes the task of you as an internal auditor to make sure that you are in a risk-adjusted, sustained, scalable, up-to-date IT infra, which you are using to do the great work. And therefore you need to use tools. Automatic identification, mapping, relating the risks to the controls, segment of the risk statements, and roll it up by risk. So when you present it to somebody, if you say that this was the risk you were exposed to, these were the processes that have mitigated it, and these were the findings which escaped through the sieves, makes so much more sense. What I've begun to do is I strongly urge companies to do two forks. One is simply an action taken report and making sure that that is automated. But more important is to create an ongoing, ever enhanced knowledge management system arising out of internal audit findings or any audit findings. I don't want to sort of add the word internal. All auditing has to be geared towards making sure that you've captured the value of every exercise that you did. You know, the Companies Act 2013 has what they call a vigil mechanism. Most companies have interpreted it to be the whistleblower activity. So they give you some funny report on the whistleblowing and that's it. Actually, this is a very deep and very holistic concept which brings everything that I've said so far together. So you can start with proactive forensics. You can bring systems analysis. You can bring your internal control documentation, your evaluation internal check system, your internal audit system, your statutory audit, your secretarial audit, your cost audit, your risk management. All of this, when they interact holistically to create the control environment, you have a vigil mechanism which is ever alert to throw out the risks that might lead to your disruption. And unless you actually can create this vigil mechanism, you are at deep risk of getting disrupted. Either somebody will steal your secrets or take away your people or simply plunder you because you got a business model which has a chink in it which can be exploited. Somebody will come in and just take it away. The number of ransomware I don't need to mention. There are only two categories of companies in the world. Those that have been hacked and those that don't know that they've been hacked. These are the only two categories. All companies have been hacked. And it is strange that people try to hide it. It's embarrassing. Rather than sharing that this is what happened and we did this, and therefore, make like how we have a BCA seminar like this where we openly share what we have seen. But if you find somebody who's been hacked, they'll just want to keep quiet, hide it. But there are only two categories, honestly. Everybody has been hacked or attempt. Power it with AI and ML. Enhance search for tools. Now, this is not going to happen accidentally. You will have to continuously trawl the web, literature, keep going to seminars, do whatever you need to do to make sure that you have the best tools, the best platforms, the best evaluations, the best presentation techniques, the best dashboarding, and continuously challenge the status quo and evolve rapidly. Be ahead. Thank you. On time. I'm very conscious about time.
Thank you, Shailesh bhai. It was an inspiring and an awe-inspiring session. All of us are really spellbound by the diversity of the thoughts and the things which have come out. With your permission, we can take a couple of questions. 2 or 3 questions from the audience, if any.
Good evening, everyone. Sir, this is being an independent director on the board of so many companies. What is your view on the fact, as this is without prejudice to anyone, this question is, so no judging anyone as such. So what is your view as to whether independent directors, being on the board of many listed companies, do sufficient justice to the position they are in?
You have to ask every independent director. If you ask me, I'll say I put in my damnedest. But I think you've got to ask everybody who puts their hand up to be an independent auditor or independent director to check whether they are performing their roles in a diligent way. I can't answer for anybody else, honestly. But I can tell you that if I do not read agenda papers, I go to a meeting unprepared, I will not stay on that board again. If I find that I can't be ready for a meeting and I can't give it 100% focus, my mind is thinking of nothing else except Mahindra Life Space when I'm sitting on that board and that particular agenda item. If you can't bring that deep focus to what you're doing, don't do it.
So does the evaluation by the board of the directors, which is there under the Companies Act, serve a purpose?
Very much. Extremely valuable purpose. But so I want to tell you something which he has heard me say this before, but the Nom-Rem committee is going to become even more important than the audit committee in times to come. Why do I say that? Because the sustainability and the future of a company is always going to be dependent on the quality of people that are sitting around in that company, particularly at the highest levels, the one drop from the CEO level. And the task of making sure that this population is correctly recruited, correctly remunerated, correctly evaluated, correctly compensated, and dealt with properly has become a huge and very important critical task. And succession at all these levels has become so critical. An immense amount of time is today being spent by us in Nom-Rem committees to address ourselves to this issue. And it's at the Nom-Rem committee that we get the brightest stars from all functions to come and present their great stories, and we call them storytelling. So they come and present. So how will I know as to what is actually percolating down? So governance is not about what happens in the board. Governance is about what happens right down to the last person who is opening the door or closing the door. If you can't define and make sure that governance happens right through, it's useless, right, Nagesh?
Thank you, sir.
Shailesh, yours was an excellent presentation, and I hope you will be able to share with the participants today.
Sure,
Right.
it's available.
Be very
Right
happy.
there.
Because we can note
It
down
will
the
be
Well,
uploaded on the
our-
website,
Okay.
so you can
Yeah,
download
sure.
it from
Yeah.
tomorrow onwards.
And Shailesh, your opinion or your suggestions how to make internal audit more effective, which can prevent the frauds and the scams which takes place in the companies, and then you go for a percentage report and all that. When the house is stolen, you close the stable. So would you suggest something how can
No,
you
it's this whole environment of assurance that needs to be created in a partnered way. That is the message of my entire hour that I spoke to you. That you need to create this atmosphere by understanding what's happening in the ecosystem, bring it down to your reality, give it context, and then create your own audit universe, which you will then audit intelligently in order to continually provide that assurance. So all those portals, all those being I am ready, being due diligence ready, being proactively checked out, all that is what internal audit will deliver. That is crucial for all of us to understand. It is not simply performing the program of internal audit, which has been approved by the audit committee. Am I right?
There's one question.
Good evening, everybody. Shailesh bhai, just one small question came up from what you said. You said that Thomson Reuters, they are the largest tax provider services in the world. And they say they determine the tax of that American countries. I mean, can you elaborate a little bit more about the process? What happens about the advance tax and
Very,
litigations?
very good. There's no advance, nothing. आपको notice मिलता है, आपको भरना है, बस. अगर ज़्यादा argument करोगे तो आके पूरा अपना चिट्ठा दिखाओ. बाकी भर दो. बस simple है ना.
Can it
और
be
कोई झगड़ता नहीं है, कोई लड़ता नहीं है. सब लोग भर देते.
can it be implemented in India?
100% implementable because of GST. Because of GST. The way our GST, it is the most IT-enabled tax system that we have seen in our country. And we need to move the needle. One of the things that, again, I would like BCAS to do is one of the greatest things that can change the needle for India is simplification and IT enablement of tax. Both direct and indirect. इतना झगड़ा बंद हो जाएगा.
Thank you, sir.
There was one question.
एक वहाँ.
Shailesh bhai, thank you so very much. I think it was a wonderful presentation, and some of the thoughts were really very exciting. Hearing from you as head of audit committee in several listed companies and all, and knowing your expectations of what you would expect from the internal audit function and the other related audits. I would like to, kind of compliment some of the things which you said, and especially from banking and financial services perspective. Risk management is quite important in banks, and Basel framework talks about the risk management, and this is also important for the capital adequacy. Some of the banks have, and as you rightly said, there is a need for a comprehensive database management on risk, whether it is external audit, internal audit, or whichever kind of audit. Some of the multinational banks have already started deploying risk databases, which is coming from any source, and because that is also a requirement for banks to calculate capital on various kinds of risks. And some of the multinational banks already have deployed databases to measure, monitor, and supervise various kinds of risk, including mostly I will talk about operational risk, which is reported by different kind of audits or internal events at various lines of defense, LOD1, LOD2, or LOD3. And this is something which internal audit can definitely look at as a comprehensive database to come up with their own opinion and updated view on the existing control environment. So I think the vision which you have shared with us is something which is really the future, is something which large organizations have already started implementing or will implement in future.
Yeah. It's only because I've seen it somewhere that I could talk about it.
Yeah. So thank you.
Having implemented it somewhere.
Thank you so very much, Shailesh bhai. And the evening today also gave me some beautiful memories. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
One last.
Wonderful presentation, Mr. Haribhakti. Congratulations on that. My name is Rajiv Basu. One very simple question. For everything that you seek to implement in the sphere of governance, largely two forces that drive it. One is regulation, the other is the market forces.
Correct.
So I'd like your thoughts, and they're quite revolutionary in you spoke about a blockchain kind of a scenario. So I'd like your thoughts on how do you perceive the market reacting to it and giving value for such a ready organization which is continuously on the vigil.
Great question. I must say, it's a very, very important question. I believe very strongly that the premium for ESG, and I take all three together, because you need to have all three combined in order to get that extra market value. Because resource raising will need the market. There's no other, the banks cannot lend you or provide you with the resources that you need. It's simply run out of capital, run out of ability, everything. We know what is happening in the PSU banks, which were the mainstay of our, more than 50% of our banking dependencies on them. So if that is the case, then if you cannot raise resources from the market and you're not ever ready, you'll simply have to close. You know, today many of the NBFCs who do not have alternative, banks are not giving them any more money. So all that they are doing is selling their books and they're shrinking because you don't have liabilities, so you can't have assets. This is rolling stuff. So that is the extent to which what I'm telling you is so critical. If you can't create this environment and you can't signal to the market that you can be depended upon. After all, why did we develop trust in the banks? Because we thought they were brilliantly audited, there was concurrent audit, there was stock audit, there was this audit, that audit. फिर भी चला गया पैसा, 15 लाख करोड़ चले गए. So I'm saying we need to now get back to that reality that each one of us will have to get there. Every company. And that's why it's important. What a good question you asked. So if you can show this and signal it, you have an IR report, okay, you have a sustainability report, and you have your financial statements. And they will immediately throw out the signal to the market that these guys know what they're doing and they're trustworthy.
You also need a bit of investor education and to pair that with
continuously.
Yeah.
So again, stakeholder relationship committee.
Yes.
10 मिनट में मीटिंग खत्म हो जाता है, right? उसका कोई मतलब नहीं रहता. If you do not involve IR, investor relations, in the stakeholder relationship, and that is the medium through which you educate the investing population, not only current but future. Absolutely.
Thank you, Shailesh bhai. It has been really a wonderful evening today, and all of us have been spellbound. One important message which I could make from the entire thing is that all of us as professionals will have to be real time. We'll have to provide a real time assurance to all the stakeholders involved. At BCAS, we have a small step of a real time photograph, which I'd like to now present on behalf of all of us to Shailesh bhai.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you. Do it now and do it in time. Thank you. That was Thank you. Wonderful. Ready. Ever ready. I am is ready.
May I request Manoj Agrawal ji, President Bombay Chapter of IIA, to present a very well deserved vote of time.
Hello. Shailesh bhai, one word. Awesome. See, there are few learnings now, AI, ML, ESG, sustainability. It's like how you make yourself sustainable. My belief is you need to kill internal audit to make internal audit relevant. When I say kill internal audit, what we are doing, vouching, no use. Of course, there's still organization which does that. Reporting, dashboard, graphics. Today, your Excel itself give you very good ideas. For example, if you have 2016, say ideas, it will give you wonderful graphics in various shapes. If you use any BI tool, it can give you dashboard without you do any programming. So, how you can make yourself irrelevant to give real-time assurance to the management. So this is my learning, and there are so many action points.
Robotic auditing. That's what you're talking about.
So if you don't audit robotic, you will be the person who is going to do data entry.
That's right.
So thanks, sir. Thanks a lot for the great learnings. I hope I can implement 10% of the same. Thanks.